Hello. Hello. Welcome here, friends. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I very much appreciate it. Today, we are going to talk about my reading year of 2024. But before we do that, I must let you know that there is a beautiful, beautiful blizzard-ish snowfall going on outside, large fluffy flakes coming down. Perfect weather for contemplation and looking over the past year. I love thinking about my previous year and my future year around the turn of the year, December, January. And so I've been doing that. It's been slow. I've also been, by January, I've just been reading like you wouldn't believe. I just cannot put these books down. And they've been so good. And so that has kind of gotten in the way of this reflection bit. But we're coming back around to it. We had a spurt, and now we're coming back. We're coming back to some videos, coming back to some other activities. I have to come up for air every once in a while. But once again, thank you for being here. Please subscribe, please like, very helpful. And I would love to know, what are some of your highlights from your reading life of 2024? Or what was your reading life like in 2024? Let me know. Okay, so the first question that I want to talk about is, what was my reading life in 2024? First question I want to answer, okay? What was my reading life like in 2024? I found this a really fun question to ask myself because I haven't really asked myself this question before. Oh my. Sometimes the thought pops into my mind. Haven't really looked at it in a full year, you know? And I think 2024 was a really good reading year. It is my first full year listening to Literary Life podcast, which makes a huge difference on my reading. They offer so much helpful insight and information. And I read all of the books with the podcast this year. And that really just opened up my mind and my eyes. I feel like the podcast and a bunch of other things have been doing that, have been really helping me to see a bigger picture through stories. So that has been a really big part of my reading life this year. Very exciting. Very exciting for me. Kind of hard to put into words. I feel like I've really begun to be able to know what's good a little bit. Still a baby, still a novice. But I'm starting to really establish, I guess, some ideas that I feel sure about. So that has been nice. And I feel finally, I've been reading books for my whole life, and finally we're getting somewhere. Finally we're getting somewhere. I read quite a lot, but I do not think that I have reached my max capacity. Now, I don't think that volume is like a necessary goal, but I think as a natural result of good reading habits, you will read more. And I think that there was many times that I chose things that were not a good use of my time that I am hoping to be rid of next year or this year, 2025. That I'm hoping to be rid of. And I think as a result of that, there will be more reading next year. But I still read lots in 2024. It was good. I think I read around 65 books, I believe, give or take. And that is a healthy number, I would say. A very healthy number. Often I found more, especially this past year and the past couple of years, I've read a lot in the mornings when I first get up. I try to make that a time for reading because my mind is fresh. And reading is, I think, one of the most important things that I do in my day. And so I want to prioritize it and put it first. So I did that a lot. And that was good. I read a big mixture of genres this year, which I really liked. I went through and counted my list. I had about roughly 46 were fiction and 16 were nonfiction. Again, some are like a mix. Like I read a collection of essays, letters, and short stories by George Orwell. So a volume like that is kind of both. I read about 14 short stories this year, and a couple essays outside of, I don't think I counted the George Orwell book as essays and short stories. I think I just counted it as a book, so I was like, I don't know what to do with this. But I also read poetry, not a ton of poetry collections, but I read a lot of epic poems this year. I read the Iliad, Epic of Gilgamesh, and the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which was not an epic poem, but a long narrative poem. I read some detective fiction, Dorothy Sayers and Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. I read a lot of fantasy, actually. Dune, Harry Potter, Narnia, Game of Thrones, but we're not going to talk about that. That's in the past. I read some plays. For nonfiction, I read a lot of like religion, and I read some Russian novels. I read some fairy tales. There's quite a spread, which I like. I like having a spread. Oh, and most of these were physical books that I read. I think the only audiobooks that I did this year were Peter Pan, and I have listened to, I guess, re-listened to the first 4 Dune books, because I read them 2 years ago, lost steam, and didn't read the 6th one. And so I'm re-listening to them to jog my memory so that I can then go back and read the 6th one. But other than that, they were all books on paper, which is my favorite. I just love holding a book. And I don't have an e-reader. And I don't like reading on my phone. So that is that. Next. I wanted to talk about some of the best books that I read in 2024. Some of the highlights. I started to make this list, and the list just kept going on and on and on. So let me mention a few of them. If you were watching my monthly read videos, you probably already heard these, but here they are again. One of my highlights was Dracula, that I read in October. It was excellent. I could not put it down. It was kind of what I expected in some ways, but it also was so much more. And it is a really good read. And if you haven't read Dracula, I would highly recommend reading it, because the way we think about Dracula, just in general culture, is so different than what the book actually is. So I recommend reading it. It's very, very good. Okay, also this year, incredible Harry Potter series. Oh, I could read that probably every year. And in my mind, I'm like, do I start that today? Do I start again? It's so good. If you have not read Harry Potter, what are you doing? What are you doing? J.K. Rowling is a queen. She wrote a true masterpiece. And I think it's going to be loved forever. I think it will be loved forever. Okay, a surprise best book. Tartuffe by Molière. This is an old French play. And I was expecting it to be kind of hard. And maybe I was going to get a whole bunch out of it the first go around. But I was wrong. I did read it in translation. I read it in English, not French. So I'm sure that helped. But it was really funny, and it was short, and I really enjoyed it. I can see myself like going back to read it for fun. Like I would read Harry Potter in the same way. I could see myself reading Tartuffe again. Something surprised you. And that surprised me. It was very good, very funny. I'm going to read another Tartuffe this year with the podcast. And so I'm excited. Okay, and Narnia. I read that mostly over Christmas. Again, I did so many good things for myself this year. Harry Potter, Narnia. One of James Joyce's short stories called Araby really captured my attention this fall. I read it so many times. It's very short. It's from the Dubliners collection, which I do want to read more of those. I have never read them all, but the ones I have read are really, really great. And I say it every time I bring up an Irish author, but I love the Irish. They just make incredible literature and art. And so I hope to get to some more of those this year. I was planning on making a separate video for what I'm planning to read in 2025, but I keep telling you, it's all connected, but we'll see. Maybe look at that too. Okay, I really enjoyed Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Again, I think my favorite ones are almost all just these almost like feel-good stories that take you on a journey and they have a beautiful resolution. Okay, and then earlier I did mention the collected letters, essays, and and short stories, letters, essays, letter, essays, and journals of Orwell, I believe is the title. But I had bought this collection, this Orwell collection, just for one of the essays for what's called Why I Write. They podcasted it. That's why I bought it. And then I really enjoyed that essay. And so I was able to read a few more. And I just kept going and read the whole collection. The collection was really good. I really enjoy reading, especially letters and journals by authors that I like. It helps you often understand their writing in different ways. And there's a lot of material in this collection that I think makes its way into his fiction. So that, I think, will be interesting as I read more George Orwell in the future. Okay, there was also a nonfiction book that I read that was really good, that I found interesting. And I haven't told you about it yet because I read it in December. And I think I'm going to lump my December reads with January because end of December was a quiet time. No talking. But I read this book called Vagina by Naomi Wolf. And I just found it so fascinating. She kind of gives a brief history of the way we have talked about the vagina and the like the whole like woman reproductive area. And she gives a history of language and talks about like the physical structure a little bit, and really talks about the connection between creativity and that part of the body. And she makes a very interesting case, and I had not heard or read anything on this topic at all like this before. And so I found it a very, very intriguing, and I'm keen to learn more and keep thinking about it. So if you, honestly, and I like this book so much, maybe I'm underselling it. I gifted it to 2 people this Christmas. Like I found it very, very provoking and full of things that people do not tell you about yourself. So if you have a vagina or you know anyone who has a vagina, I would highly recommend this book. And I found it in a free library too. It was the best free library find of the year for sure. The final question that I wanted to talk about was, what are some of the worst books I read in 2024? Now, I don't love to have hate speech on my channel, okay? But some things were just really disappointing. And I don't want you to also be disappointed, okay? The first thing that I was very disappointed by was Game of Thrones. I read, I think, the first 3, and I just kept getting, I feel like, I don't know how it ends. Maybe there is a final arc somewhere, but it seems like every time there was some sort of move towards resolution or some kind of climax coming or anything, and then all of a sudden it would just get cut off over and over again. It's like, oh, you've fallen in love with this character, they're about to accomplish this task, before they accomplish it, done. And he just kept doing that over and over again. And I just found that so, what's the point? I don't love when you ruin stories like that. I do not. And so I stopped. I didn't finish the series. I donated it out of my life. Okay, the other one that I really did not enjoy was a contemporary, I guess it must have been a romance novel. It's called Major Pettigrew's Last Stand. I read it with my book club. It was very out of character for my book club, is the truth. Currently, we are reading Dante's Inferno. So this is very different than what we normally read. But it was picked, and it was just kind of underwhelming. It felt like it was trying so hard to be, make you give you a message, that it ruined the story. Okay, so those are the only two I have that I really didn't like. Okay, and I talked about them way too long. I did, but they get you fired up a little bit. But we're moving on. We're forgetting about them. Mostly, I read very beautiful books in 2024. I am so grateful for all these good things that I read. Anyway, I had a really great year for 2024. I read so many good things. This was also the first year that I did a full year of YouTube videos very consistently. And that was good. I think that really helped my reading, because in order to be able to talk about something well and coherently, I have to think about it deeply. And there we go. I thought about my books more deeply. And so thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I hope that you are with me in 2025 as well. Okay. And I hope you have a lovely day. The snow is getting thicker and thicker outside. Giant clumps of snowflakes. People keep walking by, covered, little snow piles on their head. Very entertaining to watch. I keep getting distracted. Okay, time to say goodbye. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.